Thank you for asking that. We live in a context, again, where culturally friendship is being downgraded. So friend is now a verb rather than a noun. So you friend someone on Facebook, that means you've given them your contact details. Whoop-de-woo, that is not a friendship. And at the same time, there's an idolatry of romantic fulfillment, which we find in many parts of the church as well. You kind of graduate into marriage if you're a real Christian. It's seen as part of your discipleship to get married. So we need to counter that narrative whilst not downplaying the beauty of marriage. And the best way of doing it is to highlight that actually the real marriage is between all of us and Christ. And our earthly marriages are good but temporal reflections of that ultimate and eternal marriage. So I would preach up. We don't need to preach down marriage, but we need to preach up friendship, singleness, Christ being the bridegroom. So there's also in John 15, Jesus says, "Greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends." So when Jesus is looking for an expression of the greatest love, interestingly, he doesn't turn to marriage. He turns to friendship. There's something eternal about friendship that is not the case with marriage. Now, in the new creation, we won't marry. We know that from what Jesus says. We won't marry or be given in marriage. The friendship that is the core of a healthy marriage will exist, but the marriage itself won't. So I remember someone got me in a uncharacteristically grumpy mood. Can you imagine that? A friend of mine who was recently married, and I made not the mistake, I said, "Hey, how's married life?" They were just, smug in their response and like, "Oh, it's just the best thing in the world. I so wish you could enjoy it too." I said, "Well, I'm not lonely. I'm thankful. God's been very kind and given me some great friendships." So, yeah, you've got your friends, but I'd love you to experience this. And I said, your marriage isn't eternal, right? My friendships are. But theologically, that's true. That's not to demean this friend's marriage. It's just to say they need to kind of, yeah. Which is why the married friends I have who are real with me about both the ups and downs of married life are serving me well. Because I don't then have a romantic view of, everything would be easier if I was married. They let me into the difficult stuff. It helps me realise the grass isn't greener on the other side of the fence there. There are some unique blessings to being married, and there are some unique challenges too. And so if you are married, when you're talking to your single friends and doing life with them and they ask you how things are going, just be honest. And don't feel bad about saying, "Do you know, it's going really well. It's going better than I deserve." But you can also say, "Yeah, it's been tough recently. We're kind of snapping at each other a lot at the moment. I don't really know why, and we're not kind of connecting." It's good for single people just to know that, because I've seen people who are deeply unhappy and lonely in their marriage. And it makes me think, I'd rather be unhappily single than unhappily married any day. But that wasn't your question. Yeah, I think just make sure as you're teaching that single people feel seen. So when you're sort of, when the Bible passage you're preaching is talking about forgiveness or something, don't just apply that to, so when you next have a row with your spouse, make sure you're applying to the different marital statuses, stati, whatever the word would be for that, in the congregation. For those of us who are single, for those of us who are married, whatever it might be. And just listening to the single people in the church enough that you get a sense of how a given message will land on them. Not every message is going to have if you're married, here's what you do, and if you're not married, here's what you do, but there'll be some areas where you'll think, actually, This aspect might be a real comfort for some of our single friends right now, and this might be a word that challenges some of our married friends, whatever it might be.